Hello and welcome back to Birds on Power Lines. And we are doing another video version of our podcast. If you are listening on an audio platform, you can go to our YouTube location, which is our home. Look for Birds on Power Lines podcast and you can see us. But if you're listening on audio, that's great. This is our second time doing this. The last time we did this was for our podcast on Dead Boy Detectives. Yep. So if you haven't heard that, please look that up. And then we have a bunch of other audio-only podcasts. So if you're new to Birds on Power Lines, please go and check us out. We talk about a lot of different fandoms.
And hopefully we'll have more in this format in the future.
Yeah, so we're actually kind of enjoying it.
More in the works.
More ideas in the works. Yeah. Now, if you have been listening to our podcast, you know that we usually have a topic for the podcast. Yeah. But we do a lot of other things, either sometimes together, sometimes separate, that we love talking about, and we thought we'll start a series called Musings. Mm-hmm. I think we're going with Musings, where we'll have just a smattering of different ideas, things that we're interested in that we're doing,
that we would like to share with you.
Yes, and also with each other, because sometimes we don't quite know what each other are going to say.
No.
So I thought in this one we agreed beforehand that I was going to start with one that we've both done together, and actually it is the National Theatre Live's production of Nye. And I took notes, so I and so I wanted to give a little bit of a history of this. So I think that I really wanted to do this because we saw Nye together, but and to give you a little bit of background, if you don't know about Nye, if you're a fan of Michael Sheen, you will know about it more than likely because he's starring in it. But so the National Theatre, so it's a production of the National Theatre Live. Stars Michael Sheen, and it is about a man who lived named Nye Brevin, and it's basically this one person's dream about how to start the NHS in
National Health Service,
National Health Service in England. And for me, like when I first saw the title, and I didn't tell you about this, but it reminded me, because I'm initially from Canada, and it reminded me of Tommy Douglas, who is sort of he actually got an award years ago about being the greatest Canadian. So if you're anyone from Canada, you'll know what I mean. And he was and incidentally, Tommy Douglas is the father of Donald Sutherland and the grandfather of Kiefer Sutherland. So if you're a fan of 24 and stuff like that, if you're my generation, yes, this one younger, but yeah. So Tommy Douglas, and he was the father of basically the equivalent of Nye Brevin in Canada, but Nye Brevin was the precedent, and I first saw this actually with my mother, my mother, their grandmother, and I saw it in Toronto. And if you're someone who's seen Nye, I saw it at the Cineplex Cinemas on the Queensway, and I just loved it. And it was, and I'm going to talk more. I'm getting chills just saying that because how much I loved it. But the second time we saw it together, and we saw it at the Little Theater in Rochester, New York. Mm-hmm. All right, because we live, relatively close to Rochester. Mm-hmm. And for me, each time I saw it was a really profound experience, and I just loved it, and that's why I wanted to go and see it again with you. Mm-hmm. And the second time was just as good as the first time, and so I really recommend it. So why? Well, I have a bit of a history of acting, so the acting is amazing, the production is amazing, and if you the way it's done, so it's if you don't know what it is, so the National Theatre, what they do is they do a live broadcast of a video production of a play. So it's literally the play on stage at the National Theatre, and they have cameras everywhere, and it's the best of everything for me. Like it's the best theater and the best cinematography, and it's just amazing. So if you're seeing a play and you really wish that you were looking at it from this perspective, or if you could see what was in the actor's eyes, you can see it. And so for me, it's amazing. So it's a perfect mix of theater and film, which is the thing. So the acting, of course, Michael Sheen and the whole team, the whole cast were outstanding. And so the production was amazing, and I was so moved by the performances. And I was crying most of the time. Sometimes it was happy tears, right? Like just from the sheer joy of seeing something so amazing, right? In terms of what I was witnessing. But also being moved by the life of this person and what was happening in his life. And
I cried at the end.
And yes, you did too. But sometimes you can't
I can
help.
Count, and both my hands, number of times that I've cried at some kind of movie.
So it's really something. And actually, when we saw it at the Little Theater, there was a person there, a woman there, and I don't know if you're ever going to see this. Shout out to you if you recognize this, but probably not. But anyways, she had seen it 8 times, and she was still bawling in the theater. That's how good it was, even though she knew everything that was coming. And I think, if you want to know a little bit about it, so it's set up. So it's like looking at his life in retrospect, but it's while he's dying in the hospital, in one of the hospitals that he managed to open. So it's like he's under the influence of morphine, and it's sort of done like a dreamlike kind of thing. And you see instances in his life, and for me, like my favorite parts were where he first experienced what a library was.
Oh, that was fun.
It was amazing. So just what a library is and how you could go in there and borrow books and read as many books as you wanted. And then how he overcame his stutter because he had an issue with stuttering. And then
finding different words.
Finding different words and how he was able to do that by reading in the library. So like it was like really like it sounds silly just to talk about it, but it's just amazing. Other parts where his father was dying. And then that scene where they find the coal in his body, like
that was when I started crying.
Oh, it was just
when I started crying.
So profound. There's just so much to talk about. It was so rich, and I think we would both recommend it if you can catch a production of it, or if you caught a production of it. Let us know what you thought. And I think that so go look at National Theatre Live. They're always putting out new plays. In this way. And the live version. So the first time they record it, this is the magic. The first time they record it live, and it feeds out to different cinemas around the world. Like it's incredible, right? So the first time they record it, they're literally recording it with a live audience all around the world watching it. So if you're someone who actually catches the first recording, you're seeing it live while they're performing it in the theater. So it's not like they're performing it and then they splice it together and take all the best parts. It's totally not. They're literally filming it live, and that's what gets recorded, and that's what you see. Like we saw.
It's almost kind of like those like when they used to record things in front of like a live studio audience.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, and there's just no way of editing it out. So and this one was actually the 100th performance of the National Theatre Live, and they were talking. The first one was one with Helen Mirren, right?
Something like
and
that.
I can't remember what the production was. I'm sorry, but
I think
she apparently she forgot one of her lines, and that was in the recording because she forgot the lines. So there's no going back. So this is the magic of it, and so we recommend it. So that was the first thing, and I thought I'd start with that because we were both looking at that, right? So do you have something you want to?
We can keep going.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I have one thing that I did that I didn't do with you. Is that okay? I get another thing. John Green. So the Brothers Green. I came across Hank Green first through Crash Course.
You did?
Yeah. I came through Crash Course.
Actually, no, I think I did too.
Because so
he does SciShow, right?
And SciShow, yeah. So I started teaching later in my career, and I teach now. And sometimes I need a little bit of help to figure out how best to put something across. Because just because you have the education doesn't mean an education degree in science doesn't mean you're going to know how to teach science. So I was watching Hank Green on Crash Course, and then he would also often make references to his brother, and I'm like, who's this guy's brother? And then, oh wow, okay, John Green. So
arguably the more famous one.
Yeah. So yeah, but I don't know about that now, but at least back then. Yeah. So I think so I came about, so Nerdfighteria and the whole thing, and I think we're both full-fledged members of that now. I got my awesome socks and stuff like that. But I wanted to come out, and he just did a recent thing for TB. So anyone who knows John Green knows that this is his thing. This is TB. So and one of the things that I've been teaching recently is the respiratory unit at a medical school where I teach. And I thought, wow, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about TB. And it just happened to be the same day, the first time I did this, that he put out this new thing. They have this crash course series called where they give lectures, and this was the first one. So the deadliest infectious disease of all time, TB. All right. And I mentioned it to my students in my class, and I could see who were nerd fighters. It was really quite funny because all of a sudden a whole bunch of faces lit up, and but what I wanted to bring out, okay, is a quote that he had in there, and it really hit me hard because it wasn't just about TB if I think about it. So in the history, in that lecture that he was giving, he was talking about how they have the idea of TB and the people who had TB. And as you know, John is so good with words. If you know who you know of him.
Well, he's an author.
Yes, well, but he's good with words when he's just talking, like just not just on print. So, and then he said that one of the things that people did is that they imagined them, so the people with TB, as somehow removed from the social order. And when I heard that, it really hit me, right? Because I feel like we do that a lot, right? So if there's something that we want to other things, and I just felt that was a really profound thing that he said, and it didn't just apply to TB, and you can take from that what you want, but I had certain ideas in my head in terms of that, because I feel that is, what we do that all the time. We other anyone and anything because they don't match what we think, right?
Like even kids on the playground.
Yeah, kids on the playground. You're right. Yeah. So that was, I kind of wanted to bring that out. But one of the reasons it really came to my mind is because we did the same thing with AIDS. And when I was young, your age, AIDS was a thing. And I know what that was like. I mean, we're all like, oh, well, that's not us. So, that's those people. Right. So, and I'm thinking we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And anyways, this is one of the reasons, and things that are going on now too. And just anyways, it really hit me hard. So yeah, I wanted to bring that out. And if you haven't seen it, so I recommend watching that video. I don't know if he's done any new ones in that series, or if the crash course has put the next one out. I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention because I've been doing other things. But if you know about TB and his passion for that, and
tuberculosis, by the way,
tuberculosis.
I was assume that most people, the entire
but TB, but that also brings me to why Nerdfighteria is really into partners in health, and I also want to recommend books by Paul Farmer, the late Paul Farmer, who was basically the founder with others of Partners in Health, but he was kind of the catalyst of it. And if you want to learn more about that, there's a number of books that I would recommend. There's one about his work in Haiti, which really is about tuberculosis, and then there's another one that I just loved. It's actually about the Ebola outbreak. And it is called Fevers, Feuds, and Diamonds, and I really recommend that. So that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to do a plug for that, for both of those things, Paul Farmer's books and John Green.
Doing a plug for John Green.
Not that he needs help, but I just wanted to share that, and so. Okay, you go.
Okay, well, I'm going to completely pivot to something entirely different.
Yes, please.
That is not in any way very serious at all, but it's kind of taken over my life just a little bit.
Both of our lives, I think. But maybe yours way more.
Maybe mine a little bit. Mine for the past 5 or 6 years, maybe. But
okay, more recently. Okay, go for it.
Anyway, so recently we had the pleasure of being able to attend a listening party for the new album Clancy by 21 Pilots. And by having the pleasure to attend, I mean, I wanted to go. I dragged you along.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and your dad.
And my dad, yeah.
And it was
What did you
fun.
think of it? What did you think?
I enjoyed it.
You
It
don't
was,
have to say that. That's okay. You don't have to say
No,
that.
I did.
Okay,
But
okay.
it was interesting, the duct tape.
The
and
duct tape,
and
yes.
the,
So
the red
there's-
red duct tape versus yellow.
There's
and-
a lot of lore that I'm not going to go into. There's plenty of people
No,
online that have done a lot of things. I mean,
So there's lore, and
Yeah,
and
there's
this
lore.
and this is something that's new for me. We're actually going to see 21 Pilots
I'm very excited.
in Toronto in September.
Yeah,
So
very excited,
if you're
very
gonna
excited.
if you're gonna be there,
if you're gonna be there, please like
look for us.
look for
We'll
it,
be
yeah.
around.
We're gonna be in
I
the
can't-
huge stadium.
You'll
you'll definitely be able to find
you'll
us.
be able to find it. But yeah, so I'm starting to get excited about it, but just because
Yeah.
you're so excited about it.
It's rubbing off.
And I've been listening to the music. I enjoy it.
Yes!
It's
Good.
It's a new thing for me.
It's a new
And-
thing.
but
It's
this
not what
whole
you usually listen to.
this whole concept of a band having lore is
Oh, yeah, like, and lots of
is
them
a
do.
new thing for me,
Yeah.
and I'll admit it. I was like, what do you mean that
It
they
has
have
lore. It has almost a decade of
So-
lore, and it's not done yet. We're not
so
done yet.
I don't know how much I'm going to be
That's
up
okay.
on
That's
before
okay.
that.
I
but
was able to rant to my friend about it. I
but
explained
I-
all of it to her.
I will enjoy this, and yes, your dad's coming to the concert as well.
Yes.
So this will be like a
He
family
doesn't
thing.
know anything about it.
Even though we're solely uncool, but your dad is much more into music and,
He
stuff
is.
than I'm.
Yes.
I'm not.
You're
I'm
trying
not
to do it with the lore.
I'm not a
and
music nerd.
it's okay.
You
It's
know, you're
fine.
the band nerd, the music
am. I
nerd,
really
and,
am.
and other things will come out if you listen to our podcasts.
Yeah.
This one very often talks about the
Soundtrack.
music, the soundtracks for things that we are talking about in our regular podcast. So,
Yeah.
yeah, is there any one particular song that you want to give a shout
yeah,
out
so
to?
back on track. I took notes on actually all of the songs,
course
so
you
we
did.
don't actually,
Of course you did.
we don't have time for that. So,
So
I'm
talk
actually,
about a couple of now, and then we'll talk about another one.
I'm gonna try
in
and go
future.
into this. I'm gonna do my top 3, and these are only my top 3. I mean, both because of some like the themes and the lyrics, but also just because I just like the sound of them. Like, I'm allowed to just like the sound of them. So
Yes, you are.
anyway, so I'm gonna go into a little. I'm gonna go into a little bit of backstory. So this band has kind of been there for like every major change in my life. They're like the first musical artists that I really found on my own. And they released Trench right as I got into them, right as I was going into middle school.
before that, it would be like Dad and I trying to put music on
It
you,
would,
right?
yeah. So this is kind of the first band that I really found on my own. And
Dad's
then,
good though. He's got a lot of.
I'm talking.
I'm sorry.
And then they released Level of Concern while we were all starting with the pandemic, and Scaled and Icy.
Level Concern?
Level of Concern.
Level of concern.
It's this one song. And Scaled and Icy when I was first entering high school, and now Clancy is at my next big change when I'm going into college. And I think Clancy releasing this album, specifically releasing at this time in my life, really just means a lot, because it's the whole entire album is really about like going through changes and going through cycles, doing things over and over again, but then potentially being able to break out of them. And it's really because like it's about changes, growing, maybe even like failing, but in the words of Old Age Station, which did not make it into my top 3, but it's definitely my top 5, pushing on through, taking the help you need from someone who will always stay by your side. So family, friends.
No.
There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Hold on.
That's really positive. Yeah, so we actually we do need, we're in the middle of a heat dome here, so we're a little hot. Yeah, no, keep going.
Anyway.
No, but
So-
this is really interesting because I didn't know about this when but that
Yeah,
this is-
I've been
this is
listening to
new
them. I've been
information.
listening to them for a while. Anyway, so I'm just going to talk about my favorite 3. It's so hard to choose because we were both at the listening event. We heard Josh Dunn, the drummer, his voiceover saying he thinks there's no unskippable songs on this album. I agree.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. I thought, wow, that says a lot.
There's no unskippable songs on any of their albums for me, but especially this one, there's no unskippable songs. But for me personally, my top 3 are
Unskippable songs?
unskippable. Sorry, I meant to say unskippable. There's
okay.
there's no unskippable songs. Sorry.
Okay.
It's really hot.
Yeah, we just said that. Yeah. Okay,
Anyway,
good.
so my top 3 are Navigating, Routines in the Night, and At the Risk of Feeling Dumb, just because they get stuck in my head all the time.
The song is called
At the Risk of Feeling Dumb. So Navigating, Routines in the Night, and At the Risk of Feeling Dumb.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so all of the songs on this album really, like, I had to listen to them a few times except for Navigating, that before they really clicked for me, because I feel like Clancy was kind of like a culmination of every single album that they've done. You did like a little bit of everything sprinkled in there for like, it's just like, it's an album for the fans, like more than any other. But anyway, so let's start.
And new fans.
And new fans. Okay. So I'm going to share my few like favorite like snippets of lyrics from each of them and why they kind of mean a lot to me. So first of all, I'm just going in order of the track list. Routines of the Night, I have two that are kind of fighting it out. Either it's reassuring you keep coming around, it's tough to find good company, or So Beautiful Space Between, a painful reminder and a terrible dream. Because really, Routines in the Night is, especially because you didn't watch the music videos, I did, but really just from the lyrics themselves, but in the music video, it's about like insomnia, staying up in the night and just going through your memories over and over and over again because you can't fall asleep. And especially like now that it's summer, but really just in general, we both do have bouts of insomnia from time to time, and just like lying awake thinking about like your life, things you could have done, things you will do, worrying about everything. But then like it's just I just really like it. I just really like the song, and it just feels like it really resonates on that personal level because we've both been through that. We've just been like lying awake at night, going over things over and over again. Worrying about things over and over again. And I mean, I too, just to quote the song a little bit more, I find myself walking down the halls of my head while all the world's asleep. Can see that happening a lot next year. And I just like the song of it, the sound of it, but I really like those lyrics, especially because it's talking about something that...
Is it a particular genre? Because you said that... Because they seem to play different types of music.
Yeah, they play a lot of... They have a lot of... They don't have one specific genre. It's generally...
No, but this song...
Oh, this song.
How would you would you be able to classify... Because, I mean, I've heard all the songs, but I was just hearing them
it's still, like, probably the most general category. I would say, like, alternative rock.
Okay. Yeah, we heard we did the listening party at Soundgarden in Syracuse.
Yeah, like I think generally they're usually classified as alternative rock, but this one's probably a bit of alternative rock and almost spoken. It's not rap, but spoken word a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and then next one, lucky number 9, 9 bishops. That has lore. 9 bishops. Lucky number 9, navigating. It's my favorite song off the album. Before the entire album released, I would have said that this song I would put, for me, tiered like at the top with alongside No Chances from Skeleton Icy, Bandito and Leave the City from Trench, Redecorate from Skeleton Icy, Forest from Regional at Best, and Trees from a whole bunch of different albums that have been on there many times. But it's just so good. Like, I feel like it should be one of their, like, classic songs that, like, it's just really good. I just really like it. And
you see where we're at in 20 years if it ends up being one of the classics.
The funny thing is...
Because I'm at that point where things that I used to listen to is now classic rock.
The funny thing is, navigating, Tyler Joseph said in the live stream for all of the music videos, this is one of his least favorite songs on the album. This one and Routines in the Night are only on the album, he said, because Josh Dunn wanted to keep them. And thank you very much, Josh Dunn, because those are two of my favorite songs. Okay. Anyway, aside from the fact that the lead singer has no taste in his own music, I just love this because the strong bass line throughout the song, like, if it has a good bass line, I'm, like, really hooked on that, which is funny because I don't even play bass. Like, I want to learn, but I don't even play bass. But the strong bass line and the crispness of the drums, like, and the fact that at different points the melody ebbs and flows so that you can really hear what's underneath. And as such a music nerd, I appreciate the fact that you can hear underneath. And I've listened to the vocalsless version of it, and it's like, it's just so good. Like, it's just, I love all of their songs that have, like, layers and layers of music. Like, a lot of them do. I mean, especially, like, Leave the City and Bandito have, like, a lot of layers, especially. But this one, lots of layers, really love it sonically. But then, also, the lyrics, two different lyrics again. I can't seem to turn the page. This haze around my face makes me feel so alone. Or, all alone. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. And give me some advice. I am wasting all this time. Just really hit for me. The second one, give me some advice, really just hit me like with the delivery, because that happens at a point in the song when it gets like really quiet, everything drops down, and it's just like it's almost like pleading that like, please just I need some help. And the first, it's like almost desperate, but also a little bit like very intense and almost angry. And the first one, I can't seem to turn the page, this haze around my face. Just that also just really, I just really like the delivery of those two lines. I mean, I know a lot of people in the fandom are like a little bit divided on like really the whole like delivery of navigating, especially like like singing, navigating, like the phrase navigating, the rhythm of it puts some people off, but I just really like it. I can't really imagine it being any other way, but I just really
that's
it.
the thing. It's like different people's ears hear things differently, right?
Yeah,
so maybe your ears...
My ears, like, it makes sense for me. At the first time I went through, I was like, oh, okay. But then, like, I just really can't imagine it being any other way, and I really like it. Mm-hmm. And then, finally, At the Risk of Feeling Dumb really reminds me of Friend Please all the way back from Self-Titled, because it's the message of this, and this is a very consistent message with 21 Pilots, is that, like, you need to check in on your friends, make sure they're doing okay, and this song, like, it literally repeats over and over again, remember to, like, check in on your friends. Like, so, I love the message. Also, the video was fun. You didn't watch the video, but in the video, basically, Tyler and Josh are getting progressively higher and higher up. Like, they're filming on progressively higher and higher up buildings. So first they're standing on a hay bale, then they're going to a roof, then they're going to, like, the roof of a huge, like, skyscraper building. Anyway, so my favorite lyric was...
okay, how about I try to watch the videos before I go to the concert?
Let's watch the videos together.
Okay.
But anyway, my favorite lyric was, I don't want anyone, know me or not, see me at my lowest, you don't have to drop anything for me. Just keep your plans, I hope that you never have to drop. I really like this because, like... It's something that, like, I say a lot because I really don't like accepting help from other people. Like, it's definitely something I struggle with, and just like it's almost kind of like a battle between the person saying, like, you don't have to drop anything for me, but also check in on your friends even if they say you don't have to do anything. You need to check in on them because at the risk of feeling dumb, it's not worth, like, losing a friend. Yeah, so those were my top 3 sonically, message, in terms of the message, lyrically.
So we should do another one of these after we see the concert.
We should.
And then you can talk a little bit more about it.
Honestly,
and maybe I'll be able to, but yeah. So
I'm not even going to get into the ones I want to see live. I'm not even going to get into that. I made a whole playlist of, you guys had better play these songs live because I really want to see them.
And if they don't, what are you going to do?
If they don't, that's okay. I still got to see them. Yeah. But please play Navigating live.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, hopefully that'll be, a good experience. Yeah. So
please play Bandito live. If you're ever seeing this, please play Bandito live. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
So but I'm excited that you're excited about it. Oh, and thanks. And it's good to learn more about it. So I didn't know some of that stuff. So maybe you should tell me a little bit more.
I will tell you everything about this.
So hopefully I'll learn a bit more about it.
It shows that this is 6 years. 6 years of my life. It shows.
For me, 6 years isn't,
6 years is a lot.
But someone like
6
you,
years
6 years, it's like,
a
third of your life. So, I think that's a lot. So, and that's why it's a big part of your life. And I didn't realize it because you don't tell me that. I know you're a music nerd.
I am a music nerd.
I mean,
There's
talking
a lot of other things.
You talk about music when I didn't even hear it. Like, I hear the music when we're watching stuff, but I mean, other than, like, the Oppenheimer soundtrack, that one, or the Martian
can't ignore
soundtrack.
that.
Yeah, those ones, like, I was like, okay, this is good.
There's
music.
literally, 3, 4, 5 minutes of...
Yeah, so I mean but you always hear the music, and instead of it
it's literally
happening in the
background. Can you hear the music? Ludwig Göransson. The Oppenheimer song is called "Can You Hear the Music?" I can hear the music.
Yeah,
I've listened to that too many times.
We're listening to the Oppenheimer soundtrack. All right, so anything else you want to?
No,
we'll talk more about that. All right, so other things that happened. We both saw Neil Gaiman. Neil came.
Mr. Gaiman.
Oh, actually, I was going to show this ntlive.
Well.
But we both went to see Neil Gaiman, or we went together.
Yeah.
And we saw him in Syracuse with Art
Spiegelman.
Art Spiegelman.
Yeah.
And wow, what a night. And it was amazing. If you ever get to see Neil Gaiman live, I would say that's something. You're going from a concert to an author. But it was really good. It was packed, and everyone had such a great time that people were talking about it afterwards out on the street. We ran across some people we could recognize who was there because bags of books. I think I think that was I mean, I had seen Terry Goodkind. I had seen him in Toronto years and years ago. That was like had I met your dad? I think I did. But it was years ago. I mean, Terry Goodkind is passed now, but and I was part of that whole community back when the internet was something new, and I was on a UBB board, so that kind of thing. So, but way back then. But seeing Neil Gaiman was great, and it was just so. It was a good experience, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing that I did want to share is that he was because those of you who are listening who are Neil Gaiman fans know that a lot of people are waiting for Good Omens season 3. And at that point,
he didn't talk about it.
He didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
And nobody asked the question.
Well, no, of course, because you want to be polite.
Right.
If Mr. Gaiman wants to talk about the Sandman, he can talk about the Sandman all he wants.
But the thing is, I did want to bring up that the one thing he did say, and somebody who was reading the scripts, and I can't remember who it was his agent or something, I can't remember who it was, so was reading the scripts and was crying the whole time.
Oh, no, I'm scared.
He said she needed a box of tissues. So that is the only little tidbit that we can share with you, because that's all he gave away about Good Omens 3 is that, people were, and he felt pretty good about it.
Well, I mean, if he
because he just felt it. He's like, okay, because as a writer, what you can do is to know that you've moved somebody. So, and it wasn't because something terrible is happening, but it was just so the writing, she was so moved by whatever it was that she was reading. So that's the only, so that's a good thing to know, and we'll get a box of tissues that we'll have. And I actually, if you go to Birds on Power Lines on Tumblr, we have a site on Tumblr, and I thank Neil for coming to Syracuse and speaking for our libraries. That's why he was here. Of course, if you know Neil Gaiman, he's promoting libraries any way, shape, or form, in any time he can. So he was supporting libraries in Syracuse, New York, and I thanked him for that, and he actually responded, and I was just so, like I said, this person actually just read my words, so I know I feel like I exist, So really weird, but so I put it at the top of our Tumblr page. So again, pretty Birds cool. on Power Lines on Tumblr, and you can see what he said, and what we said, or what I said, and so we wanted to share that with you. And I think the last thing that I wanted to share today, because we're going to try this again, we've got a whole stack of things that we want to share with you. But when we were at the listening party, going back to 21 Pilots listening party, I picked up this. Well, how do I put this on screen? This comic book, graphic novel on The Hobbit. And I, of course, am a Tolkien nerd. Yes, I read when I was in high school. I read The Lord of the Rings about 13 times at that point.
That's a lot.
So this was, and I really love this. I haven't had time to really get into it, but my God, look at this, the whole story, and it's so awesome. So I wanted to share this. So it's graphic novel of the fantasy classic, illustrated by David Wenzel and adapted by Charles Dixon. So I don't know how. I mean, obviously it's going to be true to the story, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But
it looks pretty.
While we were listening to 21 Pilots, I was shopping at Soundgarden, and
while I was vibing to the music, you found that.
I'm nerding out with this. So I wanted to share that. So if you're into graphic novels, you can find a graphic novel of The Hobbit, and I think there is one of The Lord of the Rings as well.
More than likely.
But this is what they had there,
if there
and it's illustrated really nicely. So so there's something that you can look for. So I think that's it for our first musings, right? Do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
I have other things that I want to share, but we'll do that in another podcast. And if here I am holding this up to the screen, and those of you listening on audio didn't see that, so obviously,
go to our YouTube and look at it.
But what I wanted to say, I'll say that again. So it's a graphic novel of The Hobbit that I was just showing on camera here, and it is illustrated by David Wenzel, and it's adapted by Charles Dixon. And I will put that in, if we're doing John Green's way, and in the doobly-doo. I will put it in the doobly-doo. I think maybe we'll keep saying
that. I feel like that must be copyrighted.
I don't know. But it's so much better than to put that in the information
in the description.
In the description. It's much more fun to say in the doobly-doo. But anyway, so I'll try to find something where where you can look this up. There must be something on the internet where you can look this up. So I'll try and put that there. And also about Nye, and recommend that in the National Theatre Live. They have their next production actually coming out soon after this recording. This recording will probably come up after the next production is coming out. Definitely. But I can't remember what it is right now. Oh my god. Oh, and then remember we're going to end off with what we're reading. Yeah. What we're reading. Okay, so I think that's how we should do that. Okay. We'll try to end these musings by what we're reading. So what are you reading right now?
Yeah, I've been reading the same thing. By reading, I mean they're on my shelf that I'm like in the process of reading them.
You tend to read multiple things.
Yeah, I read a lot of things at the same time. So you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, right now I'm reading The Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, Contact by Carl Sagan, Stormfront by Jim Butcher, Star Wars: A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller, A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, and The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang.
How do you read so many things at the same time?
Yeah, the thing is that they've been on there, and I have not had time to read them.
But you're in process.
Yeah, I'm in the process.
That's what's on the virtual night table. For me,
my shelf.
I tend to listen to books because I have two jobs and I'm busy. But we are listening to Little Big together by John Crowley. And that was a recommendation that we got from Neil Gaiman when he was talking for the British Library, right? Yeah.
We did a podcast on that.
We did a podcast on
Listen to that.
You can listen to that. And so that was a Little Big.
Shameless self-plug.
And the audiobook is read by the author. And I'll be honest, we're having a little bit of trouble getting into it. But I think now there's a lot of characters. But I think now that we're getting into it, so if you start it, keep going. And that was, if you look online, a lot of people who are into Little Big, they say, and it's probably Neil Gaiman's one of his favorite books. If you look on his journal, right, his online journal, there's an unboxing of Neil Gaiman unboxing the...
We should do an unboxing.
We can do an unboxing.
Of what?
Of something, I don't know. But anyways, Little Big. So that we're reading that, listening to that together when we're in the car going someplace together. But what am I actively listening to right now? Neil Gaiman, big surprise.
Wow.
View from the Cheap Seats, which is not a story, but it's literally Neil Gaiman and his essays and the written versions of his speeches that he's given and curated by him and I guess his agent. And he's reading it, and oh my god, I think this might be one of I think right now I'm not gonna get into that. I'll talk about my favorite book next time, but it's really interesting, and I'm really find it interesting. So The View from the Cheap Seats by Neil Gaiman.
Tongue twister.
For me, it's a tongue twister. And I also have, it just came on, I use Libby, again, plug to the libraries. I use the Libby app, okay? I know.
Is that Coraline?
It's Coraline.
Oh, yeah, that's really
it has just appeared on my shelf. Good job. I waited for it. I don't know how I'm going to read both of these at the same time before I have to return them, but, so that's what's on my
Don't listen to that
phone.
while you go to sleep, though.
Coraline?
Yeah. Okay. There's some things that are a little bit creepy.
All right. Well, and I actually just read another thing by Neil Gaiman, which was Fortunately the Milk, which is one of it. And I really enjoyed it. I know it's one of his kids' stuff, but I really enjoyed
technically
it.
Coraline and Graveyard Book are also
And I love, but I just finished Fortunately the Milk. We are in the process of Little Big together, being read by the author, John Crowley. And I am actively reading The View from the Cheap Seats
there you go.
and Coraline. I will be starting that. Yeah. That's how we will end these musings each time. And thank you so much for listening. And we hope that you've enjoyed our musings on random stuff.
Wow.
All right. Thanks a lot.